Sure wish Deadfred would upload a new video soon.
Give me a second.
Yuck, what a stuttery mess. This thing's supposed to be an 8-core ARM Cortex up to 2 gigahertz?
I thought 8 cores had more power.
Not these 8 cores.
Yeah, like the good captain said. While the J36 Ultra does have a octa-core CPU, as we'll see in this video, unfortunately, it doesn't really seem to outperform something with less cores like the Rockchip 3326 that we're sick of. However, this handheld does do something a little unique and different, so it is worth checking out. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode of our awesome content. But let's dive into the online gaming handheld and find out what this J36 Ultra is all about. Hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but are you hungry by chance? I mean, I wanted to kind of introduce you to our new concept here. Let me know what you think if you're kind of hungry.
For only $24.99, you cannot beat our meat. Come on down, play some retro arcades, and have the best meal of your life at Deadfred BBQ.
Wow, what a deal for that whole spread. So join me down at Deadfred BBQ, where we have all the classic arcade cabinets, along with such great food like the $24.99 special. No, wait, I don't own a barbecue chain restaurant, but man, what a cool concept. Barbecue and arcade games could be good. Hey, Deadheads, welcome back to the channel. Or welcome to the channel for the first time, new Deadheads. Today, we're going to take a look at the J36 Ultra online gaming handheld. Okay, as always, we're going to start with the box. And this is a decent looking box. We do have the top, the model J36 Ultra. It does make a huge thing about online gaming handheld. And this is one of the things that intrigued me. Besides the mystery CPU, which we'll get to in a little bit, the online gaming aspect was very intriguing. On the side here, we do have the 4 different colorways. I thought that the purple one they were showing off looked the best, but it wasn't able to order. So I went with the white. And then on this side of it, if you turn the box, it does say over 8 hours of screen on time. Now it's boasting about a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So are we going to find that inside, or is that more false advertising? I don't know. We'll have to check and see. But if it does have a 5,000 milliamp battery, that ought to be pretty awesome. It talks about global online multiplayer gaming. Again, very intriguing. And over 15 days of standby time. So the thing is promoting online gaming and it's promoting long battery life and standby time. Moving to the other side, we do have a description of the keys and buttons. And then on the bottom here, we have in the box, it says console instructions and power cable. Moving to the back here, we do have, again, a list of specs. Now, this is where it talks about this octa-core ARM Cortex A7 up to 2 gigahertz. Now, an A7 is not a particularly strong CPU cluster core. It is an ARM cluster that is older, so I know that this is not going to be something newer like the Rockchip 3326. However, it is an 8-core, so, let's look and see. It has 1 gigabyte of DDR RAM, and it has an 8 gig eMMC on board, so that's kind of exciting. A 3.5 inch 640 by 40, so the same basic screen we're used to. It does have built-in Wi-Fi, which it would need for online gaming, and Bluetooth. It does say it supports PSP. It says Sega Saturn and Dreamcast, Nintendo Dual Screen, and 64. So again, they're promising a lot with this CPU, so I hope it holds up to it. Now, the box says that the battery is only 3,000 milliamp hours. The advertising and the listing said 5,000 milliamp hours. And unless this is some kind of really efficient chip, I don't think it's going to get 8 hours. But again, that's to be said. Let's get this box open. And the first thing we have is a manual. Looking at the manual here, please carefully read the instructions for use. Use the product gonna get it wet, blah, blah, blah. Very basic manual, not a lot of information here. One interesting thing, they did get this verified by the FCC, I guess because of the online gaming part of it. They did get it with that, so that's kind of interesting. But really, no mention of specs anywhere on this. Let's get the handheld out of the way, and we have our classic tray. And below that, we do have a screen protector, a very cheap screen protector. And then we have our USB-C cable. Nothing exciting here. So not much in the box. Let's get this box put back together. So again, we don't have a whole lot of information. However, we do have a whole lot of promises from the box itself. But let's take this thing out, take a look at it, and start to inspect it. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, AliExpress, and the Retroid Pocket Mini V2. We want to thank AliExpress for sending this to us. This is an amazing device. Now, we all know that Retroid had a big boo-boo with the original V1 where they kind of messed up the screen, but the new V2 comes with that big, beautiful full display screen. This is an amazing handheld. It already was great, but now it's even better. You can check my influencer page with all the coupon codes so you can get this and other great items at a discount. We love this handheld. It's so amazing. Again, we want to thank AliExpress for sponsoring our channel and for giving you deadheads all these great discounts. Remember to hit the links down there so you can save today. Anyways, back to the show. Okay, so taking this thing out, initially from the pictures, I thought it was a fairly decent looking handheld, but I still wasn't sold on the build quality. But picking this thing up and holding it, it doesn't rattle and it feels okay. It feels pretty nice. It has a nice look to it. I like that the speaker is center in front, and this little metallic J36 Ultra tag at the bottom is a nice touch. This is a nice Panda style black and white handheld. The screen looks nice with very minimal bezels. But let's start as always with our button testing, and oh, what a nice surprise. The buttons are independent. So they are not connected, they are independent. So that's a really nice surprise. And they feel pretty good. They do remind me of the buttons that we looked at just recently on the XF35H and XF40H. So very similar to those buttons, a little on the small side, but very nice and independent. Now this D-pad, they call it a comfort D-pad. Let's move over to it, and wow, this is interesting. So the D-pad has really good pivots. It's got this really deep centered part because it is sort of shaped curve-like. I don't know how to describe it, but each points of the cross are sort of curved upwards. But it's not too bad. I kind of feel like this could be sort of along the lines of how Sega did with the Sega style D-pads. So I'm not sure yet. I don't absolutely hate it. I was afraid I would hate it right off, but I gotta say, I don't hate it right off. It's actually not that bad. Moving down to our sticks, and yeah, Switch style sticks. So the same old sticks we're used to. They are in the bottom configuration, which is the right proper configuration for the games this should play. So not a bad trade-off there. And then the select and start and function, which are kind of loud. So they're kind of loud and clicky. Going to the shoulders, and they're a little bit loud, and they feel a lot like the R36S line. So exactly like they feel in my R36S, pretty similar as far as those two go, feeling on that. We do have this unique bottom shape here. So we do have sort of butt humps, but they've been reduced. They almost look like they've lost a lot of weight and they have this extra skin hanging. But I gotta say, it's not bad. It feels okay to hold. Let's start examining the side of it. And we do have a power button with a reset button on one side. So nice to see that there is a reset button and a power button. Moving to the bottom, we do have two USB-C ports, a plug port for the power and an OTG port, along with a headphone jack. Moving to the other side, we have a single TF card slot, but this does have built-in eMMC, so that's good. We have a volume rocker, and then nothing on the top, just nothing up on top, so that's okay for as far as that goes. So overall, first impressions of holding this thing and kind of handling it, The shape is okay. It feels solid. It doesn't wobble. The overall build quality and feel of it's very similar to an R36S. So it's a nice, decent build. Nothing that's just terrible. I actually like the way it feels, including the D-pad, which is a little bit different, but I don't mind it too much. However, hardware aside, does this thing have the power it promises? And how is this online gaming going to work? Well, let's hop in, turn this thing on, and take a look at that. Hey Deadhead, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to talk to you today about this, the Kinhank K56. This is an amazing handheld, a 5.5 inch, very comfortable to hold handheld. But even better, our friends at Kinhank have put this with a fully curated, awesome ROM collection that has everything set up for beginners. So if you want to purchase this for somebody that just wants to grab and play, this is the perfect handheld for that. When I got this for review, I was really impressed with the curation aspect of it. Now the price of this is a little bit more, but with my coupons and our friends over at AliExpress, you can get this at a good price. Again, this is the Kinhank K56, and it is a handheld that I like a lot, especially for its awesome curated ROM collection. It can play reliably up through N64, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, Nintendo DS. It can also dabble just a little bit in PS2 and GameCube. Anyways, check my description at the bottom for your codes to save. And we want to thank our friends at AliExpress as always for sponsoring this video. We'll see you next time. Back to the show. All right, so booting this thing up presented some unexpectedness. So, you know, there's no mention of this anywhere, but this thing is actually running a version of Android. Now, it's also running some sort of front end on top of it that heavily locks us out. We have no real access to Android underneath, but it is interesting that it's running Android, which means that it should have a better standby. When they're talking on the box about that long standby life, this thing should sleep. So hopefully we will get the results of that. But looking through this and examining this front end is, you know, kind of interesting. The first section here is a TF section, or the emulation section. So we'll go into there first and look at that. It looks like they do have a emulation station type front end that's on top of that once you go into the emulation folder, and it's a nicely designed look to it, such as when we're looking at the PlayStation here, we see some nice little designs. Now, you can't theme this thing. There's no way to change the theme. There's no way to go into a menu or edit it, so you're kind of stuck with it. And that's where one of the first problems comes, because this thing is not really well organized. It is, you know, after using something like the Kinhank K56, which we highly recommend, that you saw there in the ad, is highly curated and a great experience. But this is just not very good as far as the way it's organized. It does have some scrapings, but it's, you know, not in a real good order. There's some duplicate stuff going on. It's just not excellent. Now, trying to play this, here come the first questionable issues. So as I show some gameplay here, we experienced a lot of questionable gameplay. PSP, which should benefit if this is a more performative CPU than you would find in the 3326, should perform somewhat decent. It's very interesting that they would have a game like God of War in here, because as you can see from the footage, it runs terribly. Now, you can go in, you don't have access to RetroArch, that's another huge downside here, but you can go in, you can adjust some things, but even putting this on the most basic, lowering it down to 1x, I could not get this thing to perform great. I would rather be on the 3326 for PSP. Nevertheless, you really shouldn't be playing PSP on this sort of screen anyways, but just to be that. But let's try some PlayStation. Looking at Soul Edge, we actually had a little bit of slowdown there too, something that we didn't expect. And even in Aladdin for Game Boy Advance, yes, we found a little bit of slowdown. It was very puzzling. We didn't get the experience we thought we would get, certainly from 8 cores. So I don't see that the power is here. But we're going to take this thing and open it and look at the CPU in here a little bit. Now let's hop back in what's more interesting and actually does work pretty well. Moving out of this and going back to the beginning, we do have a section of games that they put together for what they're calling their online gaming section. Now, they're all sort of fighting arcade games, but as I show some footage here, it works pretty well. Once you get the Wi-Fi turned on and set up, you can go in and there's lobbies, and you just have to find other players and start playing them. Now, the experience I found was decent. It shows you the milliseconds at the top from your opponent and you, and it found me opponent and started it pretty good. The biggest downside is it tries to have some emojis for you to use, and those are annoyingly implemented. They kind of got in the way, and I didn't have a great experience with those emojis. But, however, give them props for a very interesting idea that seems to be implemented much better than the emulation section of this handheld. I found myself kind of having a little fun. Now, you can't really, do voice chat or anything fancy like that, but it's a novel idea for an under $50 handheld, which may be tempting and interesting for some. There's only about 8 or 9 arcade fighting games right now. I hope it will expand. There is a section to update this thing, so maybe in the future this will have more games and be better. I give them credit and props for trying something different, but Ultra, this thing is not really Ultra in a lot of ways. We have some pretty standard, decent hardware that would match the R36S. We have some awful lockdown software. Now, if someone like Gamma could get a hold of this, I bet we could have some really nice Android on this. But I don't know if you'd want that because, again, they've curated this little section with this online gaming thing that seems to be proprietary. Now, if any of you know that this is running some sort of Android or maybe RetroArch itself online gaming matchmaking, let me know, because I'm not familiar with that. But it seems to be something proprietary to this brand. But let's stop and let's get this thing opened up and let's verify what's the battery size and what CPU is inside of this thing. Okay, I was able to get this thing open, and it does list it as a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. That's a far cry from the 5,000 milliamp hour battery that we saw advertised online. Now, I have been alerted there's a different packaging that lists a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, which is what our package had. There's also one that does correctly say 3,500 milliamp hour. However, it's disappointing not to see the 5,000 milliamp hour that was promised. Now, even more interesting is the CPU here, which happens to be none other than the Mediatek ARM MT6592V. So this is an older CPU that was released way back in 2014, 2013 for like set-top boxes or very basic phones. And so, again, it is an 8-core ARM CPU as stated. However, the performance on this thing is not really all that great. There is hope. Maybe it could get better. I don't know. But now we've verified the CPU inside this thing. We've also verified it does have 1 gig of DDR RAM, which is probably the base minimum for Android. And it came and opened up very easily. So I will give them credit for making this thing super easy to open up to verify. So let's wrap this video up as I put this back together. And what are my thoughts on this? Well, it is a novel idea, and I like that it's not yet just another 3326 because those are getting to be super boring. We have the RG35XX Pro and the Battle XP G350, which are really about as good as they can get. I don't think there's much more improvement that can happen on this form factor for anything to come out, although I could be surprised. So having a different CPU, along with the addition of being able to online game battle, is a novel and interesting idea that I do like quite a bit. I don't know that that alone warrants enough for the rest of the downfalls of this handheld, but I will say kudos to them for trying something different, and if you can get this at the right price, you might enjoy playing the online portion of it as well. I know there's a million different ways to go in now and play online games, but if this ecosystem can be developed and flourish, we might have a retro-centric place to play online fighters. So overall, I did like some of the things they put here. I'm just disappointed that the CPU is not performing like it could. I don't like that the software is locked down like it is. I wish we had open access to RetroArch, for example, and maybe even Android. But but it's decent hardware. It was easy to open. I give them props for that. A 3,500 milliamp battery is decent on this. I don't think it has the 8 hours of game time, and I don't think it has the quite 15 days of standby. I'm not sure that I believe that, because I did leave this on standby and it was dead after about 3 days. So for me, I didn't get that experience. Anyways, guys, this one's a little bit interesting, and let me know if you pick it up. I don't think this is for newcomers. I don't think this is for people that are just, want a couple of handhelds. But if you're into tweaking, you're into trying to overcome things, or you just like e-waste, this is probably a decent one to take a look at. Much better than a lot of other stuff, especially that Gam Ninja we looked at recently. Anyways, remember to love your hugged ones and hug your loved ones, because tomorrow's never promised. See you next time, Deadheads. Deadfred out.